Okay, so for this project, you're going to want to get a ruler, something to write with, a pen, a pencil that can write on fabric, some strapping or grommets, some clips or pins, and some scissors, and your sewing machine. Right now what I have here is 2 pieces of fleece, right sides together. And we are going to measure out a rectangle. And I'm not exactly sure how big this is going to be yet, so I'm going to make it as wide as I can by whatever length I can get it. Okay, so I have a rectangle I've cut for my ferrets. It's 16 by 24. So 16 wide by 24 long. I'm going to cut it and clip it or pin it. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to sew all the way around, but you want to leave an opening. So somewhere in the hammock, leave an opening about 5 inches wide, so we'll say. So I always mark my openings with a pin. So you're going to stitch from here all the way around to here, and you're not going to stitch here. For those of you who don't know, I got a new sewing machine. This is industrial, so it's kind of big and crazy. Alright, so we're going to come in about a 1/2 inch or maybe a 1/4 inch seam, something to that effect, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, so what you're going to want to do now that you've stitched this is you want to snip your corners, just so they poke out nice. So just go like this. Now you're going to want to turn this right side facing out. And poke out your corners with your hands. Alright, so now you should have something that looks like this. And what you're going to want to do, what I do, is I take clips and I just kind of line the sides up, and I'm going to show you guys what I mean. And then we're also going to want to close up this opening too. So let me zoom in for that. Okay, so you have this opening here. And it will naturally the seams will roll in. You just want to make sure you line them up so that they line up and make an even line like with the rest of your fabric, just like this. And then you're going to want to pin that in place because you're going to want to make sure that you close this off, you stitch this closed. So I'm going to just put a clip in to my ends. And then I'm going to go all the way. I choose to do this is an optional step, but I like it when my fabrics are lined up really pretty right here. And in order to keep them like that while you're stitching, I find it easier to clip them in place. So I'm just going to go around and clip all of my edges so my seams are pretty. This is just a preference. It's kind of a personal thing. A lot of people don't really care if the fabric kind of rolls over and you can see it and it's kind of a little messy. So if that's you and you don't mind it, then don't worry about this step. You just want to make sure that you close that opening, that you stitch that opening closed, and we are going to top stitch all the way around this. In a second. So once I get done clipping this, I'm going to top stitch the whole thing. Okay, so now that you have clipped your edges and you're ready to go, you're going to top stitch all the way around. You want to make sure that you stitch this opening closed. Okay, so now you have your piece. It's all one piece. All the edges are stitched. And what you're going to want to do now is, for me, I want the sharks to be facing outside. This part doesn't necessarily matter. I'm actually not going to use strapping. I'm going to use grommets. But what you want to do is you want to fold it in half. So you're folding it in half the short way so that your two 16-inch sides are lined up like this. And just line up the edges. And you don't have to clip this. It's up to you. It's whatever you're comfortable with, but you can clip it. And then you're going to take it over to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch these two pieces together. So when you're done, it should be open, kind of like a tunnel almost. Okay, so now you've sewn it, you should have something that looks kind of like this, like almost like a tunnel. For me, I'm going to flip it so that the right sides are facing out. Okay, so here's my seam. Now, this next part is kind of how big you make your top piece is completely up to you and dependent on the size of your pet. So I have ferrets, obviously, so I'm going to make sure that they can fit inside of here. So what you want to do is I'm going to put the seam so that it's facing, looking at me. And I'm kind of going to measure up. We're going to say go 7 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That puts me right about here. Take your fabric, wherever you decide to do this, and pinch it. Now do not grab the bottom, just right here. And pinch it all the way across. Now for me, I'm just going to clip this in place because I want to show you guys what it looks like. You're just clipping the fabric together in the spot that you pinched. Or pinning it, or however you want to do it. Okay. And then obviously you're going to have this side that you have your seam in. And this, you might have to just play with this a little bit. Let me see. Because this is going to be like this. And if you find that this is not a big enough opening, so for me, I think this makes the opening too small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this in a little, and you'll see what I'm doing here in a second. To turn it back and face to you again, try again, wherever you get it, we're going to go here instead. All right, so what you would want is, you would want something like this. So when you hang it, you're going to hang it like this, and this will be where they crawl in. See that hole? See how much bigger that is? So once you get this where you want it, this opening, you're assured that your pets can fit inside of it. You would want to go to your sewing machine and just stitch right across here to hold that spot in place. So you're basically creating another seam that's kind of going to look like this, except you're just making it by stitching a line across. Okay, so now you've done that, and so you should have something that looks like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use grommets to hang this, and what I'm gonna do is, you can buy grommets, either by the tool, which is expensive if you choose to do this, either get it off Amazon or get it with a coupon at Joann's, get it at Walmart. Don't pay full price at Joann's. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, so you have your seam is right here. You're gonna want to push up so that you are putting your grommets underneath the, like, make sure the seam is between your fingers, that you're putting the grommets after the seam, not through the seam, because that's going to be really hard to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it. I'm going to take my pointy scissors, something sharp. I'm going to go through the fabric, both sides. Now, this is not going to be easy, but we're going to do it. Oh, it's not that bad. I know this. Whenever I do this, I always feel some kind of way about putting holes in my brand new stuff. Just got to make sure you can. And then I'll link to a video on how to put grommets in so that you guys can see exactly the method for grommets and other ways to hang things. So I will put a link to that video above me. So but you're going to get your grommet in there, put your grommet piece on, line them up, grab your tool. All right. Then we're going to do the same thing to the other side, right lined up directly across from where you just put that first grommet. Okay, so now we're going to do over here, do the same thing. Okay, so now that you've done that and you put your grommets in, you will have a hammock that looks like this. And I will put it in the cage so you guys can see it. Okay, so now that you've done that, your hammock will look like this when it's done. It's hard to see. It's so hard to get it right for you guys to look at, to see it. But it looks like this. And I'm going to hang it in the cage so you guys can see what it looks like. But essentially it looks like this, which I'm having a really hard time getting you guys a good shot of.